It's literacy time once again, my achievers. Are you ready to explore something new today? Well, I hope you are. Today, we are going to be learning a little more about sentences. Now, I'm sure you already know what are sentences. Do you? Well, if you can't remember, a sentence is a set of words that is complete in itself, typically containing a subject and predicate, conveying a statement, question, exclamation, or command, and consisting of a main clause and sometimes one or more subordinating clauses. Now, in short, many times, I'm sure that you would have heard that a sentence makes sense or a sentence must make sense. Now, let's look at simple sentence. Now, when you hear the word simple sentence, what comes to mind? A simple sentence is a sentence that consists of just one independent clause. A simple sentence must have a subject and a verb. So, when we are writing or constructing sentences, there are some main characteristics or elements that must be present, and that is subject and verb. Now, sentences do not have to contain a dependent clause. An independent clause, however, it must contain, and that is a clause that can stand by itself, meaning that by itself, these set of words will have meaning. Now, let's look at the breakdown of a simple sentence. Remember, I said in the sentence, it is made up of practically two parts, a subject and a predicate. So look at this very short sentence I have. Mary plays tennis. Now, how do we identify the subject in that sentence? The subject is the person or thing which the sentence is based upon. So in this sentence, we are talking about Mary. So Mary is the subject. In this sentence, we have one subject, and the predicate, it gives information about the subject. So, plays tennis. So, Mary plays tennis is our very simple sentence, but at the same time, we have to know how to break it into those two main parts, which are the subject and the predicate. Now, what do you think of the simple sentence? Did you realize that it consists of just the one subject, as I said before, and the predicate as well? But what you need to see also is that in the predicate, the verb was there. So the verb is a part of the sentence that is identified as the predicate. Now, as I said, the simple sentence must have a subject, it must have a verb, and in some of them there must be an object. But in simple sentences also, they may contain what we call a modifier. Now let's look at this sentence. James ate the avocado very fast. I'll read that again. James ate the avocado very fast. Now, when we look at that sentence, in the whole, it makes sense. It is telling us something about our subject, who is James. So, James in this sentence is the subject. It means that this sentence is based on James. Now, what about James? He ate the avocado very fast. He ate the avocado very fast. So, ate the avocado very fast becomes our predicate, the avocado being the object, and very fast, if you look, being the modifier, because it just tells us how he ate. The word ate, as clear as it is the verb in this sentence. So we have James as our subject, ate as our verb, we have the avocado as the object, and very fast as our modifier. And again, this is another example of a very simple sentence. Now, look at this. We went to San Juan. We went to San Juan. Now, in this sentence, we are not using a noun as we did in our two previous examples, where we spoke about James and where we spoke about Mary. In this simple sentence, we have, we went to San Juan. Now, can you identify the subject of this sentence? What or who this sentence is based on or telling about? Yes, we. But here we know that we is not a noun. It is more a pronoun. So the pronoun here is the subject of the sentence. We are talking about we, a set of persons. And what is it about we? We went. Where did we go? We went to San Juan. So went there is the verb. As we all know, San Juan would be the other information to complete the predicate part of the sentence. So we there is the subject, went to San Juan there would be the predicate. So in this sentence, we have the verb together with a prepositional phrase. And I'm sure that you would remember your lesson that you did all of these things individually in. You would have done work on verbs, you would have done work on preposition and prepositional phrases as well. So in this simple sentence, we have the subject being the pronoun, and we have the complete predicate being made up of the verb and the prepositional phrase, which is went to San Juan. Our simple sentence is, we went to San Juan. The subject is the person, place, or thing that the sentence is talking about. And that is very important for you to be able to identify so that you could link the other information from the sentence to the subject. So we have another example here. Rita loves to eat. Rita loves to eat. Remember, the verb is the action in the sentence. Now, what there is the action? She loves, yes, to eat also. Eat there is a verb, but we have Rita loves to eat. So we have the verb, the object, and a modifier, right? She loves to eat, not just Rita eats. Rita loves to eat. Then we have the object being the person or thing that receives the action of the verb. So not in all sentences will you find an object, but you can add an object. Like in this example, Rita loves to eat apples. So what is the object in that sentence? Apples. Rita loves to eat apples. We have our subject being Rita, and we see she loves to eat apples. Then we have our modifier that we could also include in our simple sentences. So the modifier is a word or phrase or clause that gives additional information about another word in the sentence. So we know that Rita loves to eat apples, but how does she do it? Very slowly. So Rita loves to eat apples very slowly. So if we were to analyze this last sentence, we would see that Rita is the subject, loves to eat apple very slowly would make up our predicate. So we have there our subject and our predicate. Our predicate includes our verb as well as the object and the modifier. Now, as I said, a simple sentence, as you would have seen, is not always a short, basic sentence. A simple sentence could have a compound subject. Now, what do I mean by compound subject? Now, if you can remember when we talk about compound, we're talking about two things, okay? So we're saying that in a simple sentence, you could also have two subjects, two simple subjects that would be. For instance, Jack likes walking. Now that is a basic simple sentence, a very simple sentence as per se. Now if we want to compound the subject, we could clearly see that the sentence is talking about Jack. So Jack therefore is our subject. If we want to compound the subject, it means that we have to add someone else that we are talking about. So we can say Jack and Jill like walking. Again, Jack and Jill like walking. So Jack and Jill are our subjects or makes up the subject of the sentence. Here this is a compound subject because the sentence is now based on two persons instead of one. So this is a simple sentence with a compound subject. It's made up of Jack and Jill. Now, a simple sentence could also have a compound predicate, which means that when we add two or more verbs to share the same subject. So, for example, Jill likes fishing. Jill likes fishing. Again, this is a pretty basic sentence. We now can compound the predicate. We can now say Jill likes fishing and hunting. So here we have the predicate being compounded because our subject is Jill. And Jill is just one person who the sentence is based on. But what are we saying about Jill? We're saying that Jill likes fishing and hunting. So here we would have compounded the predicate, or we would have said two things that Jill likes to do. Now, there are sentences where we could compound both the subject and the predicate. Look at this example. Jill and Jack like walking and fishing, but hates running and hunting. Let's look at that. Jill and Jack like walking and fishing, but hate running and hunting. So here we see we have compound subjects, which are Jack and Jill. And we also have compound predicate, which are walking and fishing. Now, this is still a simple sentence, but remember that we have compounded the subject and the predicate. So you could see, even though the sentence is referred to as a simple sentence, it can get quite busy. Now let's look at some more examples. I will read the sentence and you try to identify whether it has a simple subject or a compound subject, whether it has a simple predicate, meaning one predicate, or whether it has compound predicate. Jenny loves to dance. Does that sentence have one subject and one predicate, or is the sentence compounded? It only has one. So we have one subject here being Jenny. Let's look at number 2. Jenny and Harry love to dance. Here we see that Jenny and Harry makes up the compound subject. Jenny loves to dance and sing. Jenny loves to dance and sing. Now, what do you see in that sentence? Yes, we can see that Jenny likes to do two things. So there we have the compound predicate. Jenny and Harry love to dance and sing. Jenny and Harry love to dance and sing. So in this final sentence, we could see that we have a compound subject, Jenny and Harry, and what do they love to do? They love to dance and sing. So we have our compound predicate. So I want you to keep those in mind. Now I want you to read each of these sentences and determine whether the subject or predicate is missing. Once you would have determined that, you are to write a suitable subject or predicate to complete each sentence. So what I'm basically doing is giving you an opportunity to make this sentence whatever you want it to be. Meaning that if the subject is missing, you are free to add any name to it. If the predicate is missing, you're free to add any information to it. Just remember that whatever subject you decide to put, or whatever predicate you decide to add, the sentence must make sense. Now let's look at a simple example. David blank. Now we have to complete this sentence, but we need to figure out whether David is the subject or the predicate. From our discussion, we can conclude that David is the subject, meaning that the sentence will be based on David. It therefore means that the predicate is missing. We have to give some information to the sentence that would complete it. So, the information that I would have added, walked to the park. David being the subject and walked to the park being the predicate. So, now that you have an idea what to do, give it a try. Number 1, my friend John. And you now have to decide what you're going to put after you would have figured out what is missing. So my friend John, is that the subject or the predicate? Sam and Sherry. That's number 2. Sam and Sherry. Number 3. Walked to the movie. If you look carefully, you will see you have the blank, then walked to the movie. So would walked to the movies be the subject or the predicate in this sentence? You have to decide. Number 4, the animal. Number 5, we are. Number 6, she. Number 7, the lion. Number 8, blank showed us the different animal species. So there you have it. 8 short statements for you to complete and make it into a simple sentence by adding either the subject or the predicate. So you have 60 seconds on the clock to quickly decide what you will put into each one of these statements to make it into a simple sentence. Now, let's look at the incomplete sentences that you were given. And we'll also look at what I put in to complete them. And you will see how well you did. Now, remember, we had to go through each of them to decide whether we were given the subject or the predicate before we knew what to add to it. Number 1, my friend John. Now, if you would have analyzed this carefully, you would have realized that my friend John is the subject. We're talking about my friend John. So what about my friend John? I said rides to school. So my friend John rides to school would complete my sentence, which means that I had to add a predicate to that sentence. Number 2, Sam and Sherry are going to the movies. Again, Sam and Sherry would have been identified as the subject. And in this case, it was a compound subject because we're speaking about two persons, Sam and Sherry. So what about them? Are going to the movies. And that was the predicate that I added to make my simple sentence. So for number 3 now, we had the blank first and then a part to complete the sentence, walk to the movies. So walk to the movies, would we say that is the subject or the predicate? Yes, the predicate, because if you look carefully, you would see that the verb is included there, walked. So we were given the predicate, we now have to include the subject. So for my sentence, I chose to use the family. So the family walked to the movies. So that's my simple sentence where I had to add the subject. Number 4, the animal. What about the animal? Right away we know that this has to be based on the animal. We have to say something about the animal. So the animal is the subject. So what about the animal? Is in the cage. So I used is in the cage as my predicate to complete my simple sentence. I hope that you have the ones that you would have done, or if you didn't write it, that you are thinking very quickly as we go through. We are, that's the beginning of the sentence. Now here again, in this, like for one of our examples, you would have realized that a noun was not used. Instead, we used the pronoun. So we here is the subject. Now, can you complete the predicate? We are going on a family picnic. If you look carefully though, you would have seen that you were given a part of the predicate, which is are. You have to be smart and you have to look carefully at the sentence to determine which part is the subject and which part is the predicate. She is watching her favorite cartoon. She again being a pronoun, so therefore this is the subject. We would add the predicate is watching her favorite cartoon. The lion. The lion there is our subject. You're correct. And the mouse are sleeping. And the mouse are sleeping. Now, look at my simple sentence. What did I do to this one? Did I just leave it with a single subject? No. I added another subject. So I have a compound subject. The lion and the mouse are sleeping. So are sleeping there being my predicate. But I also added another subject to make it a little more complicated. And our final, the zookeeper showed us the different species of animals. So the zookeeper is my subject. Showed us the different species of animals is my predicate. So boys and girls, that was our example. I hope that your sentences were close to those that I would have written and shared with you. Now let's recap what we would have learned today. Now we've learned that a sentence is a set of words that is complete in itself, typically containing a subject and a predicate and conveying a statement, question, exclamation, or command. and consisting a main clause and sometimes one or more subordinate clauses. In other words, we say that a sentence is a set of words that make sense. A simple sentence, which we focus on today, consists of only one independent clause, meaning that the entire sentence by itself makes sense and has meaning. An independent clause, what exactly is it? It is that which can stand by itself, or as I said just now, it has meaning altogether. A simple sentence also has a subject, verb. It may have an object and even a modifier. The subject is usually the person, place, or thing that the sentence is talking about. The verb is the action in the sentence. If an object is included, the object is the person or thing that receives the action of the verb. It is the who or what the subject does something to. The modifier is a word or phrase or even a clause that gives additional information about another word in the same sentence. So your simple sentence doesn't usually have to have an object or even a modifier, but it must have a subject and a verb because the simple sentence must have a subject and a predicate. Now, we also discussed that a simple sentence is not always a short, basic sentence, and you would have seen that as we would have made compound subject and compound predicate. A simple sentence could have a compound subject, that is, a subject with two or more simple subjects, meaning we can base our sentence on one thing or one person with another and maybe another. So you have 2, 3, and 4 persons that you're talking about in that same sentence. A simple sentence could also have a compound predicate, meaning that you could have 2 or more verbs that share the same subject. Well, this is all from me, your teacher, Ms. Shamshidi. Stay safe and see you next time where we will look at another type of sentence.